yesterday on his radio and TV program over at morningstarministries.org, Pastor Rick Joyner, the host of Morningstar Ministries, had this to say.
That's why I appeal to the Lord. Don't let us be totally destroyed. Please raise up those who will save us, because the system is so broken, so undermined right now, the whole system. I believe our only hope is a military takeover.
Host of morningstarministries.org. Pastor, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Good to be with you.
Thank you for joining us. Do you really want the Egypt scenario to play out in the United States, have the military take over our government?
Absolutely not.
Why did you call for that?
Well, I didn't. And I think a lot of the some of the videos that are floating around the internet took and spliced different parts of my program together. Depends on where you got it. But
you just heard the clip we played. Was that an intact clip?
It was, I think, a couple of different parts that were put together.
Okay.
So, but one thing I did say, that if you don't change your direction, you're going to end up where you're headed. And I do believe where we're headed is a meltdown of our government, of the process. And I'm not just talking about a government shutdown like we're heading for here, but I believe there are much more serious issues that are eroding the foundation. And yes, I do expect at some point there will be a military takeover. I also said, this is not my desire. This is what I see coming if we don't change our direction. But I also said, which I believe, that we can change our direction. And also that even if it happened, even if we went to that extreme of such a meltdown of the system, that doesn't mean we can't get it back on track.
Well, let's hope so. This is the piece of that clip, just the tail end of it. Let me just play this for you.
I believe our only hope is a military takeover.
Now, is that not you saying that, Pastor Joyner?
The alternative would be anarchy.
Pastor Joyner, I'm sorry, I lost you from the telephone line there. But that clip that I just played for you, was that you saying, I believe our only hope is a military takeover?
Yeah, can you hear me on this?
Yeah, it's pretty bad on the Skype. If you can talk into the telephone, it'll sound a lot better.
Okay. But what I was saying, if we have the meltdown, then our only hope is a military takeover. And what I was trying to say was...
So what's going to provoke that meltdown?
Pardon?
What's going to provoke that meltdown? Are you talking about the debt ceiling thing?
No, I'm not talking about anything that's necessarily imminent. But I'm talking about things like the devaluation and immediate and fast devaluation of our currency, which I believe we're being set up for. I believe there are other factors. I believe the incredible dysfunction that we've entered into and the way the dysfunction of our government is leading to the eroding of some very basic foundations of our government, of our constitutional government, and of the moorings that it has to have for us to remain a constitutional government.
For example?
Well, for example, our founding fathers built two basic firewalls that they said, without these, you tear these down, this republic cannot last. And they foresaw tyranny coming from two directions. They saw it coming from both the executives, or the king, or from the mob, from people just out of control. And they brilliantly placed in our government and in our Constitution firewalls that would keep both in place. And they understood. I think most of them understood you need a strong executive to prevent kind of the rule of the mob, where they run amok and control the government.
So what is it that is provoking your angst about the current state of government in America?
Okay, this may shock you, but I've been saying this for 25 years, actually since 1987. And when I believe that things have continued on the course. I believe that they are
at this time, many different factors are hitting us all at once. Many different.
But these are all generalities. Can you give me some specifics, please, so I can understand where you're coming from? For example, I mean, do you think that like Obamacare is a sign that we're at the end of the world?
No.
Is
But
it?
I think a lot of people tend to think in extremes like that. Now, I'm not thinking in that kind of extreme.
Well, what is it? What do you see coming out of the Congress or the president's office that causes you to be, as a minister and a person steeped in the history and lore of the Bible, to be concerned?
Well,
in specific,
I wasn't just talking about this government. As I said, I started sounding this warning in 1987. And
so you're concerned about the government of Venezuela or England?
No, I'm talking about the U.S. government.
Okay.
I'm talking about certain factors. We're headed down a course that if we don't change our direction, we're going to end up where we're headed.
Okay, so how should we change our direction? What would you propose we do?
I'm trying to answer.
Okay.
One thing is the QE, what is going
quantitative easing?
Yes, quantitative easing.
So you think that the Fed buying toxic 50-50, 45 billion of toxic junk from the banks and 40 billion of treasury bonds every month, that is leading to the end of the world?
No.
Or the end of this republic?
Why do you keep bringing up the end of the world?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm exaggerating. The end of our republic. You said, something that's going to bring about a military coup. In my mind, that's almost the end of the world. But you're right. So the end of our republic.
No, it's not, and that's what I was trying to say. If this happens, it doesn't mean it has to be the end of our republic. It can still be saved, even if there's a meltdown.
So how do we save it? We say no to the Fed. You can't buy treasuries anymore.
I'm trying to answer you. Quantitative easing is one thing that can contribute to the same thing happening here that happened in the Weimar Republic in the 30s. I was in your precinct. Nobody. There's a real concern of what is.
I think your face is pushing the buttons on your phone, sir.
Oh,
hello?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
it's quite all right.
Well, all over.
But the Weimar Republic failed because they had to, the Treaty of Versailles required Germany to pay back an amount of money that was greater than the GDP, multiples greater than the GDP of Germany. They couldn't pay it back, so they devalued their currency in order to pay it back with worthless marks. We're not in that position, are we?
Well, it's not the same cause, but we're doing the same thing. We're setting up for I think, something that could happen very fast, where all of a sudden, many people in the world will stop taking our dollars.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me say, Pastor Rick Joyner, I suspect our politics are very different, and perhaps even our religions are somewhat different, but I don't wholly disagree with that statement. Pastor Rick Joyner, MorningstarMinistries.org. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Okay, you're welcome.
We'll be back.